Hey, we want to welcome you to Speaking of Horses Radio, and today we want to thank many of the fine people that make this radio show possible. King Barnes, wonderful custom barns. Drinking Post Waterers, frost-free watering. Source Nutrition out of Connecticut. To Equade, health products for your horse. Also Total Equine Feeds, Orange Slow Feeder. Ask Dr. Dan. Timeless Fence Systems out of Tennessee, Equerry Supplements, and Equessentials, ATH. All of these fine companies make Speaking of Horses Radio possible for you. Well, welcome to Speaking of Horses. I'm your host, Wayne Williams, and we're ready to go right here with some of the great stories from the horse industry. So join us as we get ready to go Speaking of Horses right here on this station. Well, hey, welcome to Speaking of Horses, and boy, my guest today, we're glad to have him join us, is Ty Evans, and he has on the business card it says TS Mules, but Ty and Sky Evans, and you live in Utah, and you travel extensively training mules. So first of all, Ty, welcome to the program, and second of all, tell us what got you started in this.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Glad to join you today. I've been around mules and horses and donkeys too my whole life. My dad rode a lot of colts for a living as I was growing up, and I just kind of took over his kind of his training operation. But as far as the clinics go, we just found out that didn't matter how much work we put into these mules and horses and whatnot, if the people that we sent them back to didn't know how to operate, it wasn't that good of an endeavor.
Yeah, if they didn't know how to operate it, you still had pilot error, right?
Yeah. Our motto is helping people with mule problems and helping mules with people problems.
There you go. Now, yeah. Are you originally from Utah? Because you live in Chester, Utah.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Utah. Yeah, that's home sweet home.
Now, where exactly is Chester, if you're looking at a map of Utah?
You know what? If Utah had the top right square, if it was a square state, it would be smack dab in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Right in central Utah. The nearest bigger town is still a very small town. It's called Manta, Utah, and that's that valley's our home.
Okay, and that's a pretty area, because that would be, you kind of would go through there driving from Salt Lake to Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, we're a little off the path. If you took the detour out, Highway 89, it's a gorgeous drive through the mountains. So we're just a little up from the interstate, kind of off the beaten path. So it's a very nice little mountain valley.
You know, I've got some friends right now, as we speak, that are in Bryce Canyon trail riding, and they traveled out from Wisconsin and from northern Illinois, and boy, the pictures I'm seeing, just beautiful riding in Bryce Canyon out there.
Oh yeah, Bryce Canyon is beautiful. That's south of us a couple hours, and it's gorgeous down there. Utah's so diverse with the trail riding opportunities. You can ride deserts, you can ride high mountain country, and then like Bryce Canyon, the big canyon country. You know, that's gorgeous.
Wow. Well, let's get back to the mule training a little bit. Now, what if you were to have to describe to a layman, fairly simply, what would be the main differences or similarities between training a mule and a donkey or a jack and training a horse?
Well, I actually get asked that a lot, and the fundamentals and foundational steps never change. We have teaching these clinics all over the country. We often have a lot of we'll have mules and horses and donkeys in the same clinic, and I don't single anybody out. I don't say, oh hey, you with the really long ears do this, and then you with the short ears do this, and then you with the medium ears do that. I don't. It's all the foundation and the You know, but it's kind of what between the lines of what makes it different, and it's kind of how they process. You know, the horse is a fast processing machine. That's why us humans, you know, more people get along with horses than anything, because horses are very much pleasers. You know, they're high output and they like to please. You know, and that helps. You know, even people that are very novice get along pretty good. The mule and the donkey are take a little longer to process. The horse, you can tell them to do it, and they do it. The mule, they're going to be like the kid in class that always asks why.
Right.
Say, like you do this, they say why. You know, why do I need to do that? And so you got to be a little better salesman, a little bit more convincing, I suppose.
Well, you know, I had a gentleman tell me one time. He said that, of course, he was very much a mule person, but he said, you know, the mule's thinking it through more. The horse will sometimes, if you go across a creek and you can't see the bottom, the horse will just kind of blunder and stumble, where the mule is thinking out a little more ahead about where am I putting the foot? Is the foot is it sound? And they're just thinking more. That's what was told to me anyway. So you correct me.
Yeah, that's right. You know, they're for the most part, you know, in general, whatever that means. In general, they are a little bit more sure-footed and they have a little higher level of self-preservation. But one of my favorite quotes that I like to tell folks was from Tom Dorrance, and this is in regard with working with horses and working with mules. Somebody asked him, you know, the difference, and he said, well, you have to treat a mule the way you should treat a horse. And I really like that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
You know, that does. That does. If they're a little higher thinking animal in many respects when they're talking about, and you said it's self-preservation, then you should treat a horse that way, but you can get by with not doing that. With a mule, you can't get by with it.
It's unfortunately with the horses you shouldn't, but a lot of people can get by with the horse kind of ramrodding it around. You know, they can get along kind of good even doing that, unfortunately. But with the mule, it doesn't work. you gotta make things. You know, you gotta make the right thing easy. You know.
So when you do your clinics, and I know right now as we speak, you happen to be in Missouri getting ready for a clinic. I was looking at your schedule. I think it starts tomorrow, but you're getting all your prep work done. But when you do these clinics, what are the main problems that people have when they're working with mules that say they may not have with a horse? Where do they have their issues?
Well, you know what, the issues, you know, comparing horses and mules, they're all the same. The main thing that these clinics that I find that I'm helping, kind of our demographic is our ladies, you know, ages 40 to 60 that, you know, have some confidence issues, need help with different things. As far as the problems that they might have, you know, most of these folks just want to get their mules and horses just kind of operating a little better, and just get along better, I guess, is the big thing. They want to get along. Some people, the issues that they might have is, you know, on the ground, maybe their mules and horses are very pushy. I see that quite a bit, where the animals are just running these folks, these poor people over, and you know, to the mule and the horse, they're just doing what they think is best. You know, they're doing what they can. The human doesn't know how to fix it or correct it or help it. So that's a common one. You know, and in the saddle, when people are in the saddle, the biggest thing is people just trying to get these animals to, you know, to get a better stop, turn better, back up better, all the kind of the basics that we all need to always improve on, really.
Right.
And kind of our, you know, I guess our main focus is getting these mules handy, getting these horses handy, so that people can be safer out on the trail. Most of our customers and so people can have an enjoyable ride, but also have an animal that is very light and responsive and doesn't just plod down the trail like a dude animal. Just trying to get a little better. That's our main gig.
Well, and you know, that's what most people are after, whether it's a horse or a mule or a donkey or whatever. They're just after a better ride. And you said it, the vast majority of, whether it's horses or mules or whatever, are out on the trail. They're in the backyard. The people are using them for enjoyment and pleasure. There are the percentage that go in the show ring, and there are some wonderful show mules, and you know, up through dressage, driving, and everything. But just like horses, there's a very small percentage that actually chase the ribbons in the show ring. The bulk of them are home, and that's the people that have to park that animal for a couple of weeks, and then when they get it out, they want to be able to tune it quick and go ride.
Yeah, that's the main majority of people, and you know, it's really interesting too that in the mule world, it's very interesting to me because last weekend I was in North Carolina at an event called Mule Days at Leatherwood, and it was a great event. We did a 3-day clinic there, and we did a lot of trail riding and enjoyed the mountains of North Carolina. But on Saturday there was a show, so it was interesting. All these people that had been out going down the trails, and you know, they're out splashing in the mud and the water and going through deadfall and all these things, but yet they can clean up and show up in the show ring on Saturday and be successful there as well. And so the versatility of the mule is really what impresses me about the animal, that you can kind of do it whatever you like, you know, and that's pretty neat.
Well, I like their mindset. So, Ty, let me ask you this: how do people contact you now for clinics, or for? I noticed you've got some DVDs and things. How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways. You can find us on the internet. Our website is tsmules.com. That's T as in Ty, S as in Sky, mules.com, and that's our website. We have our clinic tour listed on there, and then of course we have a presence on the social media outlets, on Facebook. You can find us on there, TS Mules, and Instagram and whatnot. Those are kind of the few ways to get a hold of us, and we're always happy to help answer questions, and love to help people at these clinics. So.
Well, Ty, we're about out of time, but we really appreciate it, and thanks for joining us here on Speaking of Horses. We'll catch up to you later.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. I appreciate you.
Well, that's our show. I'm your host, Wayne Williams. Speaking of Horses, we'll be back next week with a brand new show. Or join us at speakingofhorses.com.